Good morning and welcome to Mission Control Houston, where I'm sitting among the hardworking ground team here at the Johnson Space Center, who are all currently keeping up with the hardworking space station team up on orbit, preparing for a productive weekend. In the spirit of spring cleaning, the Expedition 55 crew has been busy packing up the latest Dragon cargo ship, and other things with experiments and other things no longer necessary on the station. They've been up to a lot of stuff this week, though, and so that's not it. Take a look.
Houston Station on Space to Ground.
Welcome to Space to Ground. I'm Ana Cristina Olvera. SpaceX is getting ready to wrap up another successful supply run to the station this week. The Dragon spacecraft has been packed with more than 4,000 pounds of cargo and science as it gets ready to leave the station. Flight controllers on Earth will send all of the commands to Canadarm2, releasing Dragon on Saturday morning. The capsule will fly away and eventually splash down in the Pacific a few hours later, where it gets picked up by SpaceX and brought to California with some of the science offloaded immediately to head to labs all over the country. And with over 2,400 pounds of samples coming down, there's a lot of different science headed back to Earth. The crew spent the last few weeks completing science experiments that arrived on Dragon and packing up samples that will continue to be studied here on Earth. Some of the investigations returning cover topics like creating more effective pharmaceuticals, growing new types of plants for food in space, studying fruit flies to see how astronaut immune systems change with microgravity, and a whole lot more. This week, one of the students talking to the astronauts as part of the Year of Education on Station was wondering how the astronauts spend their time off together. Turns out they're pretty multi-talented, even when it comes to relaxing.
We have a couple of guitars up here, and actually 3 of us on board, myself, Ricky Arnold, and Scott Tingle are all guitar players, and so we like to play guitars occasionally on Friday nights or Saturday nights. So we try to have fun when we can. We do get some time off on weekends, and that's a nice time just to talk about the week, unwind, and get ready for what's next the following weeks.
Keep sending in your questions using the hashtag #SpaceToGround. We'll see you next week.
Like Ana Cristina mentioned, you can watch Dragon CRS-14 start its journey back to Earth this Saturday morning right here on NASA TV or online at nasa.gov. Coverage begins bright and early at 8 a.m. Central Time with an 8:24 a.m. approximate release time. After that, the ship is expected to splash down some 5.5 hours later off the coast of California. Assisting with those operations this week and every week of his mission, NASA astronaut Ricky Arnold. He's on his second spaceflight, which is also his first long-duration stay in space. The Maryland native is a former classroom teacher taking over the Year of Education on Station responsibilities for the next 5 months. This will likely only add to the interesting experiences he's already had, even before becoming an astronaut.
I graduated from college and was working at the United States Naval Academy in the oceanography department, and that's when I first considered becoming a teacher. My first teaching job was at the John Hanson Middle School in Waldorf, Maryland, and even though I was a science teacher, I actually taught 2 classes of social studies to go along with four classes of science. I coached high school basketball in Maryland at the Thomas Stone High School, as well as in Casablanca, Morocco, and in Bucharest, Romania. I played a guitar in the rock and roll bands with fellow faculty members, administrators, and even some parents, both in Casablanca, Morocco, and in Bucharest, Romania. My first teaching job was in an open space science classroom with no running water. And I realized when I could get through my first year of teaching, I had really accomplished something.
During this year of education on the station, as I mentioned earlier, Ricky Arnold and his crewmates are helping teachers and students get the most out of learning about science, technology, engineering, and math. You may have even already seen some of those demonstration videos they recorded all while on orbit. These videos are carefully crafted to offer a fresh and out-of-this-world look at our most fundamental scientific principles. And when the one we're about to show you, astronaut Mark Vanahay takes on Newton's third law of motion.
Welcome to the International Space Station. I'm NASA astronaut Mark Vandehei. Today, we're going to talk about Newton's third law. How do you think it will hold up in microgravity?
For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. This means that in every interaction between two objects, there are a pair of opposite forces acting on each object at the same time. A force pair. You can see that there are many examples on Earth. In space, thrusters expel one way and the vehicle is steered in the opposite way.
Hello again. More basketball stunts that I can't do on the ground, at least not while getting this much hang time. All right, back to serious business. Got a basketball right here. It's going to be object 1. I'm the second object. If object 2, myself, applies a force to object 1, then that same force will be applied according to Newton's third law by object 1 onto object 2. However, there's a big disparity in the mass. Object 1 is a very light mass object. Object 2, myself, is a larger mass object. So I'm going to try to make myself about the same shape as this ball. See how that works for us. And I'm going to apply that force. You saw that force applied to the ball made it accelerate quite a bit. It really didn't accelerate me much at all. Newton's third law again, but this time we're going to use two similarly massed objects. Joe and I have about the same mass, so Joe, get into a ball. I'll do the same. I'm going to face you this way so that I don't throw you into something you can't see. Now I'm going to get into a ball behind Joe, and I'm going to apply a force to him. Notice that when I applied a force to Joe, it accelerated Joe away from me, but I got accelerated away from him as well, because the force applied to Joe ended up being the same force that was applied to me. Now you've seen Newton's third law in space. Now test it out on Earth. See you next time.
One thing the crew often gets asked about is orbital debris, and for good reason. Orbital debris poses a risk to all spacecraft in orbit. So the International Space Station has an impact sensor that can provide a lot of helpful information to avoid problems. The Space Debris Sensor will monitor impacts caused by small-scale debris for 2 to 3 years, improving station safety by generating a more accurate estimate of debris that can't be tracked from the ground, and helping to find what else could best protect orbiting spacecraft. Keeping the human crew members healthy during their long-duration missions is an important part of station science. The longer we have people in space, the more we learn about how different aspects of that environment can impact human health, and the more we teach ourselves about how to fight those negative effects. Future explorers need this kind of information to stay healthy long enough to finish their missions, since they will be taken off on journeys further than anyone has ever gone before. Among the many studies underway, one that takes a look at how different spectra of light impact the astronauts' sleep.
The Power of Light, presented by Science at NASA. Crew members on the International Space Station, or ISS, can experience sunrises and sunsets in rapid succession, about 16 sunsets per day because the space station circles Earth once every 90 minutes. Most people function regularly on a 24-hour cycle known as a circadian rhythm. However, the space station environment creates a departure from the cycle of light and dark astronauts are used to at home. A high workload, the need to work night shifts, the excitement of spaceflight, plus the unusual environment can disrupt astronauts' circadian clocks. These factors can combine to disrupt sleep, which can in turn affect performance. Being wide awake when they should be sleeping is in fact a long-standing challenge among ISS crew members. Studies of astronauts who flew between 2001 and 2011 on the Space Shuttle and 2006 through 2011 on the space station showed that astronauts slept considerably less in space than they did on Earth. About 3/4 of them reported using sleep-promoting pills during their 6-month missions. Use of caffeine is also commonplace among ISS astronauts to fight off the daytime drowsies. But NASA is seeking a better way to solve the problem. The secret lies in light itself. It's known that the blue-enriched light emitted by our laptops can keep us awake at night. A new NASA study will investigate how to use that for the benefit of humankind and not just on the ISS. This light study, known as the Lighting Effects Study, coincides with the lighting makeover on the space station. The fluorescent lights on the station are being replaced with a new system of solid-state light-emitting diodes, or LEDs. Not only are the LEDs more energy efficient and safer, they can literally shed all sorts of light on the study topic. Brigham and Women's Hospital's Dr. Stephen Lockley and Thomas Jefferson University's Dr. George Brainerd are the co-principal investigators of the lighting effects study. Lockley explains, light has a number of effects on our sleep and circadian rhythms, is a natural stimulant, and can improve alertness and performance and also help reset the 24-hour clock when it gets out of sync. The human eye contains a light-sensitive protein called melanopsin, different from the rods and cones that we use to see, which detects light in the eye and mediates these effects. Melanopsin is most sensitive to short wavelength blue light, and so by increasing or decreasing the proportion of these blue wavelengths in white light, we can enhance alertness or promote sleep respectively. Lockley says NASA has developed a multi-LED lighting system to take advantage of these light effects. The system can provide millions of different light spectra. We're not making the ISS into a disco, but we are going to use 3 different light settings. We'll use a general light setting that provides a good light to see by during normal work, a higher intensity blue light enriched setting that elevates alertness and can better shift the circadian clock when needed, and a lower intensity blue wavelength depleted pre-sleep setting to calm the brain and promote sleep. We will be studying the impact of these lights in future missions.
Oh, you guys, it is so fancy. It is really awesome. I think the technical term is light functional checkout was successful, so congratulations to the light team.
Results of the study are expected to help define guidelines for lighting protocols during future ISS and human space missions. Study results should make it clear exactly when and how to use these various settings of light intensity and spectrum. These results could also lead to Earth-based benefits, such as helping manage sleep patterns for shift workers, or even developing treatments for sleep disorders or jet lag. For more from the International Space Station, visit www.nasa.gov/station. For more news about the power of light, stay tuned to science.nasa.gov.
The International Space Station is a platform for science about the Earth, but it also houses research that is being conducted to benefit life on the Earth, all while supporting plans for future exploration far, far away. Take this for example. Future deep space explorers, like all Earthlings, need a lot of clean water. Luckily, station research has already come a pretty long way in helping with that, thanks to the development of an inexpensive and easy to use tool that allows people on the planet to check out the purity of their water.
Most of the children, they come here with waterborne disease.
So many children under 5 suffer from diarrhea.
They're complaining about the abdominal pain, skin rashes.
They get waterborne illness through drinking waters.
Most of the community members had little knowledge regarding the use of safe water and what safe water is.
Because most of the water we use it without knowing it is affected with disease or not.
So we need to test them so that we make sure that the water is safe or not safe.
A lot of people have the idea that water quality is too hard to do in the field and it's too complicated.
Having to transport samples, having to have reliable electricity, having to heat samples or keep samples at certain temperatures or put them in refrigerators.
But probably the biggest challenge is actually the cost.
The price was really high, up to $300 a test.
So all those things come together to make it really difficult to use a traditional laboratory approach when you're testing water. What's been missing is the really simple, cheap test kit, and that solution came from above. On the space station, we recycle almost all of the water that the astronauts drink, and that constitutes a risk because if that water became contaminated, the astronauts would have to abandon the space station in the worst-case scenario. What we needed on the space station was something that was small, easy to transport, and didn't require a lot of training for the astronauts. We developed a water test kit that was really easy to use and used off-the-shelf components, and we called that the Microbial Water Analysis Kit, or MWAC. It's basically a bag that changes color in it, and the astronauts just had to hook it up to the water system, take the sample, store it overnight, and read it the next day. It worked great, and it's still in use today. This was when we realized we had a chance to make a difference in the world using the same technology that was used by NASA, but applied in a remote area of a developing country.
We started MWater for the biggest health crisis on the planet, which is a lack of safe water. The test kit is revolutionary because of its cost. It lowers the cost of testing water points from hundreds of dollars to about $5 to $7. It can be done on site in the remote region, and it can give you a result within 24 hours.
I take a sample today, tomorrow I have results. To use a MWater kit is very easier.
But we learned that testing water by itself wasn't enough. With the mobile app, people could map water sources and record the data.
So that way we're building sort of a global database of water information that everybody can contribute to and share with others.
So what that meant was people who before didn't have a feasible and affordable way to test water suddenly had the means to know which water sources around them were safe.
It's made people much more aware of the issues of water quality. That's a very powerful thing.
And that's all due to technology that we've borrowed from the International Space Station. So now we're able to assemble a really low-cost water quality test kit to ship all over the world.
We've been working with the local health ministry and the water utility in Mwanza, Tanzania since 2013.
Through that technology, most of the citizens in Mwanza have an increased awareness regarding the kind of water they use and whether it causes them any waterborne illnesses or not.
People are now treating their water and avoiding sources of water which could be contaminated. I've seen a growing awareness.
It is very unusual for technology that is used in international space stations to be used in developing countries like Tanzania, but it can be used, and it should be used because this technology is not limited to only developed countries, but for all humankind.
With experience repairing cars to experience repairing the Hubble Space Telescope as part of the Space Shuttle program, astronaut Drew Feustel is a handy crew member to have on board the station. He launched back in March of this year, embarking on what has become his third trip into space. Now, with 5 months left on orbit, let's spend a few moments learning a little bit more about this future station commander.
How would you like to be the guy on the last servicing mission of Hubble to do the first thing on the mission, which is the most important thing, and then break the bolt? Well, I grew up in Detroit. Detroit's the Motor City. My father and uncle were both engineers for Ford Motor Company. I was always exposed to, mechanics and mechanical things. And then while I was attending community college, I landed a job, classic automobile restoration shop, and particularly work on old 1950s Jaguars. And that was where I guess you could say, worked professionally as an automobile mechanic and restoration specialist. And being a mechanic has been very beneficial to me, I think, as an astronaut. My first mission was repair of the Hubble Space Telescope, and I think that my skills and my aptitude with tools had a lot to do with the assignment to that mission, because the first EVA that we did was to replace the Wide Field 2 camera. My first flight to space, my first EVA ever, my first task in space was to go out with a wrench and release the bolt on Wide Field Camera 2. And I was doing my job, got in my suit that day, went outside, got on the arm, got my tool out, went up to the telescope, and tried to release the bolt, and the bolt was stuck.
I think it's just slipping. Yep.
So eventually they said, okay, take the torque limiters off and just, release the bolt. There's really no way to control whether you're going to break it or not. And so that's what we did. I just put as much force into it as I could.
Okay, here we go. I think I got it. It turned. It definitely turned. Yep, it turned.
And luckily, it came loose instead of, breaking in the telescope. It actually came loose, and we were able to retrieve it. I'm proud to be a mechanic. I'm proud to work with my hands. That skill set has been very valuable to me, and we know that from astronauts who have been to the space station before us that much of the work that we do in space is about keeping the systems operating, keeping the experiments operating, working outside with external repairs on EVA, spacewalks, and all of those things that we do involve tools and working with tools and making repairs to equipments. I've just really been lucky in my career that I had that skill set that I brought with me into the office. I'm Drew Feustel, and I'm an astronaut. Follow your dreams.
Drew is preparing to take over the role of station commander for Expedition 56 beginning in June. And in the fall, he and his crewmates Ricky Arnold and Oleg Artemyev will set off on their journey back home to Earth. Looking back a bit, the summer months of 2017 were exciting ones for NASA, as it announced its newest class of astronaut candidates with a big announcement here at the Johnson Space Center. Wondering what has been going on for that new group since then? The answer is a whole lot, which you can see for yourself as we drop in on the class of 2017.
I think for me, the most challenging has been Russian, learning Russian. I don't speak another language coming in here, and so trying to learn that as a middle-aged man and trying to pick up another language, years and years out of school has been very difficult.
Russian's been fun. Learning new languages isn't necessarily my strong suit, but we have amazing support.
Yeah, it's fun to get to learn about the Russian culture. Like learning a language is kind of a big way that you get to do that. It's like a glimpse into a whole other world, so it's been really cool. My group is just starting to learn all of the space station systems.
Today we were learning about the space station configuration,
We're getting a chance to actually see some of the hardware on station, walk through it. We'd be floating, obviously, in space, but getting to actually see the physical layout that corresponds to the academics we've been reading about and practicing is a great opportunity.
I've really been enjoying T-38 training. That's been a lot of fun for me since my background is in the submarine force. Getting to learn how to operate in an aircraft is a different context for me, and that's been a lot of fun to learn how to help manage what's going on in the cockpit.
I had a little bit of flying experience before I came here, but nothing at all like flying the T-38. Just the experience of taking off, like pilot putting the plane into afterburner and accelerating down the runway was pretty incredible.
The newest astronaut class gets a front row seat as NASA embarks on several new space exploration missions. You want to catch that next step in the journey to deep space? Well, coverage begins Saturday, May 5th at 5:30 in the morning Central Time for the launch of NASA's InSight Mars lander. That's going to be the first mission to peer deep beneath the Martian surface. And as always, you can check out the stories you saw here today and more on YouTube and Facebook at those addresses right there in that little blue box on your NASA TV screen. And while you're out there on the internet, take a listen to Houston We Have a Podcast. Each episode features a new NASA pro giving us some insight into their work and their interesting experiences on the job. New episodes post on Fridays, so today, May 4th, you can catch my colleague Gary Jordan talking with researcher Scott Smith and learning all about the different nutritional requirements for those on long-duration space missions. You can find that at www.nasa.gov/Johnson/HWHAP, as in Houston We Have a Podcast. You can also listen on iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud. Well, until next time, this is Mission Control Houston.